today is very special day. Your Excellency, Professor Sir, thank you for coming to Sri Lanka from England. Professor, could you kindly explain about the homeopathy and your knowledge about the homeopathy? How about the benefits for the patients and people like that, please?
Homeopathy, the whole point of homeopathy is going from the Greek, meaning the whole and disease, is that we're considering why someone has a problem, not too concerned about what one calls the problem, but why they have it and how they have it. Like anything in life, if you know how something has come about, you can actually do something about it. And both healingpathy and holopathy are doing the same thing. As practitioners, we have a range of abilities, and what we're interested in is actually getting the person better, not just making them feel better, and not just trying to patch things up. Sometimes we have to patch things up, but we're far more concerned about getting people actually capable of looking after themselves, of actually getting back to health. And this is one of the differences between allopathy, which is conventional medicine, and ourselves. That is, allopathy is looking for a name to call the problem and then to give a corresponding drug or surgery procedure which will alter that state. We're more concerned about trying to find out how that problem came about. In other words, if someone comes to us with, say, arthritis in one knee, we know that the synovial sac has dried up, that the fluid is drying up, that the bone may be grating up on bone, and we might actually be building up little exostases, little lumps of bone in there, and it's called arthritis. But if I went and they asked, and I said, I was told that I had arthritis, my answer would be, why haven't I got it in the other knee? Or even to the doctor, why haven't you got it? Or why hasn't my mother-in-law got it when she's a lot older than me? What I'm saying is there is always a cause, there's always a reason why we get something. The chances are, in that case, that someone's structure is imbalanced so that their center of gravity is going more through that one leg than the other. And any mechanism which is used more on one side than the other is going to wear. It doesn't matter whether it's a car component, whether it's a bridge, or whether it's people. We follow the same mechanical rules as anyone else. If someone is sick, normally they will go to one therapy, and that therapist may be the best therapist there has ever been in that subject, but they are only going to really talk about that one subject. They may have some adjunctive help, that means some other knowledge of some other things that they can add to that. But a holopath is more concerned about using what is appropriate to get that person better. It may be diet related, it may be mechanically related, it may be psychologically related, it may be an interaction with a domestic situation at home that they can't resolve. It can be anything at all. If it's a psychological problem, it does internalize, and of course we have names for that. Psychosomatism or psychosomatic problems. It's all very well calling something like depression, calling someone as a depressant. But what I really want to know is, why are they depressed? There's always a cause, there's something that's wrong. In depression, generally speaking, and I don't mean to demean the condition, what it means is the person, for either physical, environmental or emotional reasons, don't feel that they're in control. And if you can find out what it is that makes them feel like that, you can actually make appropriate changes with appropriate therapies. Professor Sagara is very good at solving structural problems, and one of the biggest problems I've noticed that he's dealing with in adolescents in Sri Lanka is scoliosis. and in some cases double scoliosis, and in one case we saw this afternoon, three-dimensional scoliosis. It was like a corkscrew. There is something wrong. We're going to find out this in our research. We're going to find out why and how this happens. This is one of the many things that we're interested in. But Professor Sagara, when he's dealing with the patient, he doesn't just look at the structure. That's his forte, and that's what he's brilliant at. What he's looking at is, where's that problem coming from? Why has it happened? What can he use to actually get that patient better? Once he knows what it is, and once he knows how it's happened, he can then teach the patient how to actually change the situation. A lot of natural medicines really is just using different therapies to establish a way of changing that situation that people are stuck in. Yes, sometimes the problem is so bad that it does need intervention like surgery or drugs. But most times, 90% of the time, maybe even more, we're able to help without the intervention of any medication or surgery. But you can't be truly holopathic or follow healingpathy if you don't consider where surgery and drugs fit. Medicine needs to be appropriate, and it needs to be appropriate not to the disease, but to the person with that disease.
Thank you, Professor, being explaining about the very nice, the brilliant. And I want to ask other things about explaining the society and the 5 principles of like homeopathy. This is very, very important. Please, could you kindly explain? This is very beneficial for the patients.
Okay. Well, the situation is any system that is of any value has to have very definite laws to follow. There have to be guidelines, criteria. And allopathic medicine is about taking a full case of someone to find out exactly what's wrong with them. We're interested in how that problem has come about. And with a lot of people, it's over many, many years. So in full allopathic medicine, a case should be taken over a 3-hour period, trying to establish exactly how that problem has come about. That case is taken over a long, long period of time to establish everything: emotional, physical, environmental, chemical, everything spiritual, everything about that person that is causing or allowing that problem to occur. Then it also gives us an etiology, in other words, a build-up, a structure of how that problem has come about. Like a geological dig, there are layers that have different dates in it. And what we're interested in is just what happened when, and because crucial to the healing process, we need to be able to follow the healing process. There are 5 laws we follow to ensure that the person is actually getting better and not just feeling better. So getting the etiology allows us to follow one of those laws, which I'll mention later. We also then look at we take a full idea. In that case, we check everything about the person, i.e. the levels at which they move. We give them a physical checkup, full physical checkup. This is why it takes so long. And we're looking for any discrepancy. A lot of them can be irrelevant, but what you find gradually is that a pattern forms. And it's the pattern that we're interested in, because that's the manner in which the disease is expressing itself, or has come about to express itself. And once we've got a good etiology, and we know how it's built up, it's a little bit like having a ball of ravelled wool. Normally, to unravel it, what people would do is get the loose end and pull. And we know, of course, that often that results in a very much tighter tangle, and it doesn't come unraveled at all. What the etiology does is allow you to work out how that ravel has occurred.
The nutrition and everything is there.
Absolutely. So we can work out then what is actually going wrong that will allow us to make that change. Because a change is not going to happen unless a change is made. and the first change has to come from the patient. A lot of patients don't like change.
And other thing is the homeopathy is everything is together. The allopathy, homeopathy, and naturopathy, chiropathy. Everything is included.
They're all tools.
Yes.
They're different tools. It's like going into a workshop, a car workshop, and a normal therapy is like going and asking them to sort your engine in your car out, but they only have spanners. Huh? Then if the spanner fits, it's brilliant and it'll do the job. But what happens if there's a need for something else, which they don't have? So what homeopathy again is doing is going into a workshop where they have a full range of different tools that are needed to do the job. But it's interesting how a car mechanic can have a far better range of tools than a doctor can.
Yeah.
So taking this case gives us this situation. We then get a map out of the structure and see how the structure is laying and how that could be affecting the system. We look at the nutrition, we look at the lifestyle generally, and the spirituality is not a religious spirituality, it's a personal spirit, if you like.
The psychosomatic, psychocybernetic.
Personal belief, because a lot of people, by the time they come to see us, of course, they're dejected. They've been turned down by everyone, or they're on so many drugs they don't know whether they're coming or going. And often these drugs are given one drug to suppress the side effects of another drug. And I've had patients that have been on 25 different tablets a day. And it's simply because they've not gone back to square one and watch the body, see how it responds, and then react accordingly. They just add another one. And don't get me wrong, there's some very, very good physicians out there and do as good a job as anyone. But the system that allows that to happen, I think, is wrong. And homeopathy, it's just the same as going to see, say, a homeopath, maybe a brilliant homeopath, but they are not going to change the structure of a spine. And if the problem of that patient is caused by a lesion in the spine, creating sympathetic or parasympathetic problems in the body, in other words, problems down the bottom of the leg, or sensations, or reaction, or dysfunction, this is what the nervous system. Yeah. And when you're treating someone, you're looking at all those possibilities to see what actually can be involved. And we've seen today, just in surgery, that some patients were actually caused back into the spine from something, dysfunction, eventually goes back into the spine and results in a spinal problem. So just treating the spine alone is not going to get them better. You've got to go back to the origin, which is another one of those laws, back to the origin. A lot of therapists talk about the origin, but they don't spend time to actually find the origin. It takes time to find the origin, the actual cause. It's like that arthritis. The cause is not the drying up of the synovial fluid. We established, in fact, it was because the structure was imbalanced in the first place. And then you come along, just do a few tweaks to the body, you redress it, and magically the person seems to be better. And they can get on with their lives again. Within a very short period of time.
It's science.
It's absolute science. There's nothing mystical in any therapy. It can all be answered in simple physics, the simple laws of physics, every single therapy that's used. And it is justified simply within those laws of physics. If it doesn't fit, I get worried, because what it means is, not that it doesn't fit, it means there's something I'm missing. So it has to be absolutely clear what's going on. Then I will choose which discipline, which therapy. It may not even be me, it may have to be surgery, as we found today in a couple of cases. It may have to be surgery, it may have to continue with the drugs, but we're more concerned with, is there anything that we can do that will change the situation so they don't actually have to take those drugs or do the surgery. And I noticed that so many of your patients are no longer needing surgery
Very true.
And a lot of them came today being threatened with surgery.
Yes, without surgery, without any medication. We
Yeah.
help people very short period of
Yeah.
time, isn't it?
Yes.
Another thing is like physically and mentally and socially and spiritually, we can help lots of benefits for the person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are all these different tools, and a lot of them are self-help. So they don't even have to spend a lot of money going to another therapist to help them with another part of the system. Some of the simplest you've got beautifully in Sri Lanka here, like meditation.
Yes, of course, it's the
Best place in the
Buddhist
world
country,
to learn
yeah.
meditation.
Concentration
and
and
relaxation.
visualization and imagination. Things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I just sat on your balcony this afternoon and looked out at that wildlife out there, and I was in a different world. I was in a different dimension. But people just took time to sit and rest. And I know what it's like from my own situation, what it's like when you get into a stressed state. You find that you get into this unending downward spiral, and you keep saying to yourself, I haven't got time to do this. I know what I should be doing, but I haven't got time to do it. And then eventually something goes wrong and your body makes you stop and do it. But by then, it's too late.
Yes. And many other diseases you can explain to them, headaches or migraines or migraines or
Most diseases, we know.
arthritis,
Yeah.
osteoporosis, osteoporoma.
Well, we know that all diseases are caused.
Special for the Parkinson,
Yes.
which is incurable
Yes.
disease.
Yeah.
We can help people.
You can help it. There are things that hey, let's understand. I'm the world's worst physician. I've never cured anyone in my life. What I do is enable people to get better. Okay? I've been down the line of using individual therapies and even mainstream medicine as a doctor. I've been down all these lines. But at the end of the day, the thing that really gets someone better is finding out how they can make that change, what part we can play in helping them to make that change, whether it's a structural change or whether it's advice on nutrition or whether it's advice on lifestyle or the right type of exercise. Most people think exercise is going to a gym and just working out.
Yes.
Hey, I've treated more people who've been to gyms than I have with anything else. More than rugby.
Yes.
That's
Sometimes you
saying
can see that today the patient came after gym.
That's right.
Syphilis and things
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
Misguides, things like that.
And these are the fit pill
Yeah.
people that have been to the gym for years and they still don't actually understand the concept of exercise.
So,
One of the most influential people of my lifetime, I have to say, or before it, was a person called Charles Atlas, who actually didn't do any workouts in any gym. He was regarded as a Mr. Universe, as an ideal body. What he did was isometric exercise. And isometrics comes in different forms. You can do it as Tai Chi, Qigong, you can do it as yoga, or you can do it as dynamic tension. There's so many different ways of doing just simply
naturally.
isometrics. And he had the perfect body. And if everyone just spent a few minutes every day trying to get that fitness going, if you get someone who is out of sorts, no matter what the reason, whether it's me with my weight or whatever, there's always a cause. And sometimes that cause just needs time to make the change. And with weight, we know it's not just eating, it's not just food. Most times it's why they're eating and why they're going for those foods. So it is very complex, very deep. And the 5 laws of healing, that is to do with ensuring that we get, that's to do with ensuring that we actually get some idea, a very good idea, whether we're actually getting someone better or whether we're just making them feel better. And that is certainly, if you watch disease, it has a certain way that it goes into the body as things get worse, as it progresses. A good example is a child might start in their lives with eczema. They're given drugs to suppress it or whatever, which is great, but we know eczema doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. So it's being pushed back in. And then what happens about 7 years later, it's always 7-year stints. With ladies it's always about 6 years, with men it's always about 8 years, because we're a bit thick as men, and a bit slower and cumbersome. But what you find roughly every 7 years, it then changes into something else, and it would probably then be asthma. Now, go to the doctor, it's a separate ailment. To me, it's the same ailment. It's just expressing itself in a different way. And the body has to find a way to express itself. And if you suppress it in one way, it will find an alternative way to express itself. Like water, if you keep filling it, it will try and come out somewhere else. And so, the etiology helps us to understand, again, whether there's been suppression.
Nutrients and things like that.
Yeah. And so, these laws enable us to understand, just like the eczema has gone into asthma, when we're treating them, as their asthma gets better, suddenly they complain that they've got eczema. Well, we know that they're actually getting better. And if the body is getting better, we leave it well alone. We don't interfere. Our job is to get the body started, like an old car when you're cranking it. Once it starts firing, you leave it alone. You don't keep cranking it. And so this is when we've got to, with the 5 laws, you know whether you're actually going to leave it alone and let it get on with the job. Maybe tweak it a bit later on, like you would with an engine again, to make sure that it keeps firing. And again, the etiology shows that up. It's also the fact that the disease will work its way often into the body.
Nowadays, about people say to it like etiology, for example, like dietitian and nutrition kind of nutrition.
They may be habitually eating very bad foods. I mean, one of the problems now is, and I notice it in Sri Lanka as well, is that people think that sugar is bad for them. Well, too much of anything is bad for us. It's not the food that's bad, it's how we use it that's bad. But what they're doing now is going for diet foods or sugar-free foods. The problem is that sugar-free has now got a chemical in it to make us believe it's sweet. And that chemical is a nervine by nature. And a nervine, if taken regularly, can actually start and kick off nerve diseases.
Nervous disorders.
Nervous disorders. It can actually cause, and they found this in the States, where it's actually starting up conditions of 30% chance, they reckon, greater chance of getting Alzheimer's, Parkinsonism, etc. Any nerve disease from taking nutritional sweetness. And it's knowing again, that's just the nutritional side and the way we cook food. I mean, back in the UK, I think we cooked the worst food in the world. It was about. We had a saying when I was in the Royal Navy that the food is gorgeous until the chefs get hold of it. And I think this is the same problem with home food. But a lot of people are not even having home food, they're having pre-cooked foods. Now, you tell me why a loaf of bread should last 7 days on a shelf. Eh? Why? Because they put something in it that makes it actually poisonous to any pathogen. But we'll eat it. And then we wonder why we get so many irritable bowel problems. Intestinal floral imbalance.
Gastritis and things like that.
So it's knowing how that's come about. And then we know that we've got to do something about the intestinal flora. Not just stop the pain, not just stop the bloating, but we've actually got to change the actual flora fauna in there to make sure that it works properly for itself.
There's more help about the etiology.
So allopathy is all this. If you've got someone who has got a spiritual problem, and let's say that spiritual problem may be religion related, it's not our job to dictate to that person how they should behave. What I often use is the elders or the priests of their particular faith for them to go and see, and often find a personal prayer out of the book that they use that they can say daily as a mantra. And it has a far greater effect often than trying to send someone for hypnotherapy or psychotherapy.
Kind of auto-suggestion.
Exactly.
Conscious to subconscious mind.
Well, auto. It's got to come from inside.
Mental heal, isn't it? Great.
And I notice a lot of your patients, what you're doing is you're sort of saying, yes, what are you eating here? Okay, you've got osteoporosis. All right, so you're on drugs. but you're more interested in knowing why they've got the osteoporosis. And we often know, of course, that's either diet related or it's hormone related. It can even be genetic related, but genetics only creates a susceptibility, it doesn't cause an actuality. Life itself will determine whether it's going to be an actuality. And what is it in that person that's allowed it to actually be? So this is, holopathic medicine is very definite, structured by laws, by guidances that can ensure that everyone works in the same way. And all these tools that you mentioned, a homeopath can work holopathically. You know, an osteopath, as you've shown, can work holopathically. They can use the remedies to help a situation. They can use a remedy sometimes to completely remove a situation, especially if that problem started from a trauma. That's what homeopathy is particularly good at. And we know this, and you've got so many indigenous herbs here. One of the richest countries in the world. One of the herbal books I've written is about culinary herbs. It's called Medicinal Spices, because this country is so rich in spices, probably the richest country in the world for spices. And in people's kitchen cabinets, they actually have the answers to most needs of most minor ailments, just there, waiting for them, if they only knew how to use them. And the other one I wrote was hedgerow herbs, but that was mainly for the UK. Herbs that are growing there wild, which people have long forgotten the use of. And we've got the answers there, but people go running off to some therapist or doctor who does a lot of good trying to find out, trying to match a need for them, but the need is so much easier to attain if they only know how to do it. So again, just medicinal spices. And I mean, we have to remember, for instance, the reason why the particularly Southeast Asian countries have these spices in is like we did in medieval days. A lot of the spices are actually aids to digestion. And if you don't have fridges and things, you find food goes off quickly and therefore can upset your stomach. By putting the spices in there, it can make it taste a little bit better, but more to the point, it enables you to digest it better. Now, they're already there.
Just like people having problems about constipate.
Yes. When I did 2 week stint in Madeira for the Portuguese, it was funny that one of the most common problem on the island was constipation, and there was one company that made a fortune out of importing prunes. Simple, it's food.
Yes,
we don't need things to force the body to conform. There are foods there which will help the body to conform.
Especially for the bananas.
Bananas,
Can you explain, Prof?
Well, you've got banana is unique in many respects because it can be used in Ayurvedic medicine for either Pitta Vata or Kapha types of people, because it depends on its state of ripeness. Because you have ripe from one end where it's just pure starch, and the other end where it's just pure sugar. And each one of those will actually act as a medicinal food for that particular appropriate type. So banana is just something simple that you can either wait till it ripens a bit more to use it, or you actually eat it when it's still unripe. And so much is there in foods, and with an island like this, there is no excuse really to have a nutritional problem. If that vitamin C is not getting to the bones, where is it going? And we know there are reasons for that. It could be leached out. One of the big things that leaches it out is acid. Are they having too many acid foods? And that doesn't mean foods that are acid, it means food that needs more acid to break them down. And if your stomach is producing more acid than it should be, the acid goes into the blood, and that then leaches the calcium out of the bone. What I'm saying is, again, and I keep repeating it, there's a cause there, and it's the cause we should be going for, not the effect. Okay, the effect actually just makes a lot of money for certain people, offering quick cures, if you like. When they're not really cures. This is another one of our laws.
Sometimes it's temporary relief.
Yeah. A cure is when the body doesn't need any further help. That's a cure. A cure is not the cessation of symptoms because you're taking a drug.
And can you explain to a little bit, please, about beta thalassemia, the iron deficiencies?
We know that the problem here again is people home in on one particular mineral or metal, when actually they're all interconnected and one needs something else to work properly. For instance, your hormones can't work properly if your vitamin C is not sufficient. Your iron can't work properly in your blood if vitamin C isn't sufficient. Vitamin C is so important. Modern agriculture comes in and starts selling dairy products as an answer to our vitamin C. But actually, again, out there in our fields and in the hedgerows, we've got these dark green leafy veggies which actually have got more vitamin C in it than any milk. So you can be vegan and you're still getting...
Milk means a kind of fresh milk, isn't it?
Well, milk, in my opinion, milk should be actually raw, because by pasteurizing it, you're actually killing the very bugs that we need to build up the intestinal flora properly. So we're not regenerating the flora properly. We're actually killing them out. Take antibiotics, they kill it.
And you talk about the curds and honey.
Buffalo curd is it sounds like an advert for Sri Lanka, this, doesn't it? Buffalo curd, to me, is the finest live food that there is going. That's only because I love it. It's live, and it's actually those live bugs we need. The problem is, allopathy has come to the point where they want everything to be sterile. Now, the fact of the matter is, we depend on protozoa and bacteria around us to actually live. And it's like snakes. You don't kill all snakes because some of them are poisonous. Yeah? Neither do you kill all bacteria. And this actually leads to an even greater problem, because there is a triangulation of pathology, and that is that you've got viruses, bacteria, and fungi are the main ones. If what conventionally we do is everything that we apply seems to be antibacterial, what it does is it allows the other two to flourish, because they keep each other down. So by all these antibiotic materials we're putting out, we're actually tending to make things more hostile and more dangerous, as has been found in a lot of Western hospitals.
Otherwise, sometimes the bowel ulcers and things like that.
That flora is natural, and it keeps us healthy. We need a continuous turnover of this healthy bacteria. And we should have about 85% friendly bacteria to 15% fungoids. And if we are taking live foods, which you have here, then that is kept up. In the likes of UK, it's destroyed. You get a lot of scoliosis here. I get an awful lot of irritable bowel syndromes because that flora has taken over. And the ladies end up with thrushes, and often they get the thrushes after taking antibiotics, and they give more antibiotics for it. It's not, no one seems to stop and think, okay, what's actually happening in your bowel to cause your symptoms in that way? And this is again what homeopathy does.
Exactly.
Okay? And this is the message I think that we need to get out to the general public and to people, that a therapy can be great if it's appropriate. What we are trying to do is find out what is most appropriate, and it is that word, appropriate. A treatment will work if it's appropriate. If it's not appropriate, it might just help a bit, but it's not necessarily going to work properly.
How about immune system you have to increase about?
Well, immune system, we all know, immune system is a little bit like having a good social system, a good council, a good parliament, a good forces around us. If everything's working well, we're safe.
And happiness.
Yes, that's the emotional aspect. Those are the needs of the body, which includes,
happiness means internal happiness.
Yes, yeah. It's content. I would say it's contentment. I would say happiness is something we're trying to achieve, and every now and again we do. But what we should really be striving for is contentment. And the immune system is when everything, like those community services, are working to a balance. And a lot of our problems are actually now becoming more and more chemical imbalance, not just from foods, but from taking inappropriate medications, even inappropriate natural medicines, where the body starts to get confused. A lot of the things that are taken actually have very little value at all. Some of the synthesized medications, natural ones like vitamin C for instance, are often nothing to do with vitamin C, because there's one atom that's different, and in my book that makes it a different substance. And people take pounds and pounds and pounds of vitamin C's daily, when actually all they're taking in is acid. And then they wonder why they start with an acid problem in the stomach. So it's getting everything right, and what's happening is we're getting an increase, because we're getting a bigger imbalance, we're getting an increase of now syndromes. Now a syndrome is where you might be eating all the right things, you might be taking all the right things, but your body is not assimilating it properly. And that is often caused because one of the hormones that we use, we can't actually make ourselves. We make most of our hormones, but one of the hormones we can't make are EFAs, essential fatty acids. And some of those are responsible for the assimilation of the foods. And if we're not taking those, then what we find is slowly the whole chemistry on our laboratory top in our chemistry lab is way out of sync, and we get this problem called a syndrome, which is when the body goes into confusion and it can't use anything properly. But the other one was we were talking about earlier with the likes of buffalo curd, etc. Those bugs in there produce an enzyme which enable us to digest foods. Even those that have a lactose intolerance, if they take a live milk, the bugs in it will enable them to absorb the milk without. This is not with everyone, you understand, I have to say that. No two people are the same. But it enables them better to absorb the milk. And a lot of peoples in this world have historically an intolerance, like in fact Southeast Asia, to lactose. But by taking live milks like lassis and things like that, they are actually able to take milk products. So that's another part of the immune system. And it's just making sure that it's all balanced, because the key to everything, key to what you do, key to what I do, the key to what nature does, is that one word, balance. And that's what we're trying to achieve.
Yes, it's balanced body, it's balanced mind. Everything.
Absolutely. Balance of needs.
Yes, balance, especially for the hormone.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's lots of problems like thyroid and parathyroid, these problems. And
everything. Yes.
It is.
Because this syndrome, what it will do is it will start off with an EFA problem, but then as it goes on and it goes deeper and spends longer, it goes deeper into the body, and then you'll find one of the glands starts to dysfunction. So you get thyroid, and you get, and where is it going to go? It's going to go where the weakness is. For instance, if someone has deep emotional problems where they've never been able to speak their mind, funnily enough, you find it goes thyroid. That doesn't mean everyone's thyroid problem is because they can't speak their mind, because it could also be an iodine problem. They're not getting enough iodine in the food, or conversely, they could be getting too much iodine in the food, because it's balance that we need. Same with salt. I've had patients being taken off salt because they got heart problems, and I found in fact their problem is salt, but not because they're taking too much of it, because they're not taking enough of it. We need a balance, and that's what it's all about. Forget every other word if you like, just balance.
Can you tell me about how do you feeling about Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka to me,
enjoy it?
To me it's a second home. I've come to Sri Lanka for many years, and I love the people. I love the manner, I love the courtesy, hospitality. Well, it might be. Yeah, if I'm treated properly, it might be. But no, as I'm being treated by you. And coming from Africa in the first place myself, to me it's a substitute. And I love the wildlife, I love the nature. Everything is more, I hate to use the words like simple and basic, but you know they are. And I think that really gets back to nature, for me. Whereas for you it's every day, and you know that it's like that. And I think also you still have, unlike a lot of countries, you have freedom of press and things like this.
Nature therapy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, your magazine, for instance, that you're producing, you save a terrific amount of money to the government and the hospitals and private funding with what you do. If only it was more openly known, more readily known that people have that option. And the number of people that you've helped out, I really feel this is one of the few countries that could actually really tolerate that, because it does tend to breed a lot of resentment. If you are capable of doing something that someone else struggles with, you find that it does build up resentments. As the Chinese have a wonderful saying that the higher the monkey climbs up in the tree, the more people try and knock it out. And this is something that will less happen, I think, in Sri Lanka, but your manner particularly as well. And again, it's because you're Sri Lankan. You speak your mind, you're very easy to know, you don't stand any nonsense, people know where they are with you, and this is you as an example of this great country. And whenever I come here, I feel as if I'm coming home again. And I know I can't go back to my country and feel that, but I can come to Sri Lanka, and that's what I love, the wildlife. And of course, one of those hospitality things is you're going to take me to a game park, isn't it?
Exactly, it's brilliant. Well, thank you for explaining about the homeopathy. This is brilliant ideas about lots of benefits for the patients. Thank you again. Like that is my honor to come to Sri Lanka. Yes, and thank you for Magazine.lk in Sri Lanka. This is much appreciated about that.